So, a few months ago, I talked about an absurd situation I found myself in with the music publisher behind Undertale's soundtrack, Materia Collective. Well, after that video, Jamie, who I referred to as, quote, apparently the only normal person to work there, reached out to me asking if I wanted to interview him. If you follow Undertale content widely on YouTube, you might know fellow YouTuber Sibbles also interviewed Jamie. But given the complete meltdown that happened, he wanted to come on and answer even more questions on my channel. So today I'll be doing an in-depth interview with Jamie from Materia Collective with the focus on the situation regarding YouTube Content ID and how it relates to Undertale's soundtrack and Materia's place in it all. I tried to ask as many questions as I could, but feel free to ask further questions in the comments below and Jamie might be able to answer them for you. Now hold on there just a second. If you remember back in June, we sold the Shayy plush here. If you missed out on this, it's okay, do not fear, because a second Shayy plush has hit the channel. This one is jumbo sized, it has a purple heart. It is huge, look at it, it is larger than my head. If you want a size comparison between the two of them. This promotion will be running through the entire month of November, so if you want to get yours, you can go get it at the link in the description if you want to grab your big jumbo boy. Look how large he is. He's purple this time around. With that out of the way, I hope you enjoy the video and it can hopefully clear up confusion or questions. Hi everybody, what's up? I've got Jamie here from Materia Collective, who has reached out to me for an interview.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's always the most exciting thing, an interview, you're right.
You know, I don't really mind it. Just because it's one of those things where, like, I'd rather be helpful and provide people with more information. And it's so much easier to do that talking about it over text. It's really easy for tone to get lost over text. And then as soon as you like pick up the phone and call somebody, the animosity or the confusion just goes right out the window. And it's really, really easy.
I have definitely noticed it's a lot easier to do things when you're actually talking to the person, because, you know, if you ever write with like professional grammar nowadays in 2024, it's almost like seen as an aggressive tone.
One of my favorite pictures that I've ever seen that like continues to stick with me like to this day is somebody had like a pissed off Winnie the Pooh and it was captioned, "Can you read?" And then there was like Winnie the Pooh smugly with a monocle that's like, "As per my last email." I love that.
So we were going to do this interview 2 weeks ago, but it got delayed because I was sick. And then you were at, what, Comic-Con, was it?
Yeah, so we had a table at New York Comic-Con, which was really cool. And I actually have to fly out to LA next week for another show. So never ends. No rest for the weary, for sure.
Yeah, I was surprised when you were like, oh yeah, I'm on the East Coast, because I just thought all of you guys were in Seattle together.
It's actually a fairly spread out team. There is the core team in Seattle, but there's a few people in Texas. There's a few people like out here in the general, East Coast, New York, greater area. We're kind of all over the place.
That was actually one of the questions I had here was, how big is the Materia team? Because other than you and Sebastian, I don't actually know anybody who works at the company nowadays.
It's smaller than you might think. We have about 12 or so full-time employees, and then I'd say like the total scope of employees of the company, including contractors and such, is around 20.
Yeah, that is definitely smaller than I thought it was going to be.
People think we're like this humongous monolithic company, and part of it is like the branding is sort of like very professional and corporate in that way, but no, we're a pretty small team.
That makes sense. I think another thing is also like the statement about, providing millions into video game music kind of makes you think it's like, oh, this is like a big thing. Because millions is a big word, but compared to how much money like Google has nowadays, it's a drop in the bucket.
It's literally the Austin Powers thing where Dr. Evil asks for $1 million and they're like, that's not that much money anymore. Like it's
it's not really anything anymore. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay, so I got some questions mostly related to like, YouTube copyright stuff, because that's where I come in on all of this. And so I actually went to college for music for a year, and I was aware getting into this industry that music copyright laws just suck. They're just bad. They're so outdated.
Yeah.
Just digital copyright in general. It's like we're in the 1990s before the internet took off or something like that. Question here is that I get a lot of people coming to me to ask like, hey, I have, my video has been copyright claimed by Materia. What do I do? How can I reach out to them? Because a lot of people nowadays, they're like, they don't know if it's safe to reach out, like where to reach out to. What's the best place to like contact you guys?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is to reach out to our publishing email inbox, info@materiamusicpub.com, just because that's the inbox that gets looked at and is set up to specifically handle YouTube content claim issues. But yeah, always feel free to reach out.
Is Twitter a safe place to reach out?
Twitter's just not a great place to reach out for business inquiries in general. One, because, you know, we just don't necessarily want to support such platforms. And two, it's not really a great place for like business to transpire. If you're reaching out about like a YouTube claim that is business, even if it's something small, best to keep that over email. You know, a great rule of thumb is if there's a public question, there's going to be a public response. So the easiest thing to do is to keep things over email. It's much better for archival purposes. You can download an email, keep it in the back pocket. It tends to be a little more permanent than like a screen cap of whatever post that could be deleted or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, email is always the best place.
Makes sense. Do you guys have a Blue Sky?
We do. We do have a Blue Sky.
I basically moved over there now. I wanted to get off of the everything app X because it's terrible now.
Hard agree.
So let's see. Say your video gets claimed for an Undertale song that you either used as external BGM, like unrelated to the game itself. You're like using it as background music for a video essay, something, or it was background music on actual Undertale gameplay. Sometimes disputing the claim just doesn't work. What should a person do if this happens?
So if you're disputing a claim and you're like, it's for a let's play of Undertale or a speed run of Undertale or anything like that, like the music is just in the game you're playing, dispute that. That should work. If that doesn't work, reach out to us and we'll take care of it. That's something that we have explicitly permitted. That's something Toby has explicitly permitted. We don't want anybody getting any sort of claims on their Undertale let's plays and stuff like that. With it being BGM and like a different video where it's unrelated to the game at all, that's usually fine. Sometimes it doesn't always work. From a copyright perspective, it is a valid claim. So sometimes they do get left. And it's important to note that a claim is not the same as a strike, right? Like if your video gets a claim, it's not like that video is being taken down. It just means that the music revenue is going to be collected, which then gets paid out to Toby Fox. But I should probably take a step back and kind of explain how the whole claiming system works, because it's really complicated and a little strange, and there's not a lot of information about it publicly. So it might be good if I can help people just understand what happens here. So the Content ID system claims videos in two types of ways. One is a melody claim and one is a composition claim. A melody claim is when the Content ID system hears a melody and recognizes it as being a melody that is from something else, owned by someone else, whatever. And you see a lot of this happen, for example, when somebody uploads a cover song and that cover song gets claimed and it says, oh, well, you know, your cover song is actually using this other piece of music in it, and it gets claimed. A composition claim is when it actually recognizes the melody, but not a sound recording. It's recognizing the actual composition and saying that, hey, you're using a composition that a composer owns, and it implements a claim that way. You don't always see that on your side. Like as the person getting the claim, you're not necessarily seeing which type of claim it is, but on the rights holder side, it does somewhat affect our ability to resolve those claims. A great example, Shayy, is actually your recent issue where you had a claim by IPRS. So IPRS is actually the Performance Rights Society in India. So technically speaking, unfortunately, they do legally have the right to implement that claim because they are sort of the organization that has been given legal permission to administrate the rights of music in their territory. And there's just nothing we can do about that. The music copyright ecosystem is such a broad sort of international matrix of like different companies interacting with each other and different rights being administered by different people that sometimes it gets a little bloated and unclean. And actually, one fun thing, and I say fun sarcastically, is that when you see a video where it says like, oh, this video has been claimed by Materia Music Publishing, we have no ability or desire to manually claim anybody's videos. Anytime you see that, it's because the Content ID system has automatically implemented that claim And it's saying that it's doing that on our behalf because it's recognizing that we have the right to administrate that music, but it's not at all Materia like going in and putting a claim on anybody's videos.
Automated systems, yeah, we love it.
Yeah, it's an automated system, and it does do what it's supposed to do in the sense that it's erring on the side of the overly cautious. It's trying to say, we want to make absolutely sure that people's rights aren't being infringed who want control of those rights. And unfortunately, it's just situations like this that are being caught in the crosshairs. And to circle back around to your question a little bit, what happens if my video gets claimed? So we do review claims on an individual basis. We take a look at the video, we take a look at stuff, and we always try to be as liberal as possible with letting claims go and dismissing them and letting people have their videos. Once in a while, we run into a situation where we can't always do that. I know that sort of the hot button issue is the Toby Fox tweet where a while ago he said like, hey, if you're using Undertale's BGM for whatever purpose, dispute the claim and it should be let go. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily true. And it's because the system of copyright law is bigger than either us or Toby. If there's one thing I'd love the world to take away from this, it is neither Materia nor Toby has the ability to change the way international copyright is administered. All we can do is react to it as best as we can.
That makes sense. That does make a lot of sense. I am curious. You mentioned with the IPRS thing, you mentioned there was nothing we could do about the claims, which I understand. Like the claims happen automatically, but how were you able to resolve them? Because they did eventually get resolved.
So sometimes they will get resolved. If you dispute the claim and if you counterclaim it, they will sometimes let them go. And sometimes we are able to put in an overclaim, override, and say hey, X performance rights organization around the world, we are able to try to sort of overexert our authority and say, no, we have the right to claim this. And usually they'll be copacetic to it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that local territory does have the right to say no. If IPRS told us no, then there would unfortunately be no recourse at all for us.
That unfortunately makes sense. I know it's tough working with international music people. I know at least for content copyright and content ID for video footage itself, on my back end, there is a do nothing option exists, because I've actually had videos automatically claimed in my name before, but I just have it set to do nothing because I have a couple of old speedruns that are completely uncommentated, and people will upload theirs, and because the beginning half is functionally identical, YouTube thinks it's the same video, but I have an ability to do nothing. Does that just not exist for music?
No, unfortunately, music specific stuff is a little different. Basically, and this actually gets into me being a massive turbo nerd here, this actually gets into kind of a funny little interesting quirk of the way YouTube does music stuff. So at some point many years ago, YouTube and the video game industry sort of, mutually and silently decided to look the other way on music copyright. And if you look at the Content ID support page and you look at what is eligible and not eligible for Content ID, there is a specific exception for original video game soundtracks where, unless the soundtrack is being manually uploaded and entered into Content ID by the game studio itself, it is not eligible to be part of Content ID. The problem with this is that the music industry, the PROs around the world, would not agree with this interpretation. It is, still Google/YouTube's legal obligation to report usages of music to PROs around the world. And so the compromise that winds up being sort of levied is that songs are identified oftentimes using cover songs. So, great example, we recently got tweeted at by Vinesauce, and he was saying, hey, I was doing a stream of Super Mario 64, and my video got a copyright claim. Our cover of Dire Dire Docks was listed as the claimed song. We have absolutely no ownership of Nintendo music publishing in any way whatsoever. So, we shouldn't have been within 50 feet of that claim. But because the Nintendo catalog is not part of the YouTube Content ID system, YouTube is using our cover song to identify the melody in Dire Dire Docs and report that as, hey, this music is being used in this video. We obviously want nothing to do with overstepping our bounds and being the claimant listed on Nintendo anything. But, unfortunately, that just doesn't, we don't have the ability to not do that. That's just YouTube doing what YouTube does.
I've definitely noticed that pretty much every content claim I've ever gotten lists itself as a remix. Like, it'll point out, like, hey, this is actually Richard E.B.'s cover. He pops up in mine all the time. And I notice it's almost never for the original.
And that's exactly why.
That makes sense. So I was curious, actually, I was going to bring up the Vinesauce thing because I noticed a lot of people noticed the public response to that. You said you have hired a new PR person for the company post telling me to go to sleep.
Yes, Shayy, it is the middle of the day. Please stay awake.
There's Thursday night football tonight. I'm not going to miss that. Come on.
Legit, when I came to work and I saw that tweet, and it was like the thing from Community where the dude walks in with a box of pizza and everything's on fire.
Everything's on fire, yeah.
I just started calling people and yelling at people and being like, why on earth did you respond to anybody this way on Twitter or anywhere else? Like, this is not how we talk. And yeah, we have brought in a new marketing person, and needless to say, that shouldn't happen again. And we do apologize for the rude tone of that tweet. It is certainly not reflective of my values, and it's definitely not reflective of the company values. There was a lot of wrist slapping, to put it gently, after that one.
See, you didn't name any names or say anything wrong. See, that's actual, PR doing it properly.
People make mistakes. I'm not gonna like fire somebody over a bad tweet, or I'm not gonna like throw somebody publicly under the bus because they said something wrong. Like, I want this person to learn from the mistake they made, and I believe they have after being yelled at by me. I also want to be fair in how I respond to that and not overdo it with punishment.
That makes sense. Yeah, you could definitely. I think I've noticed the new PR person been doing pretty well, because the whole thing with Vinesauce was handled, as far as I'm aware, pretty professionally, right? Like, did that ever get resolved?
Yes.
Got the claim released and everything?
As far as I believe so. I would have to double check, but we certainly would have released the claim on our end if that's possible for us to do, which it should have been if we were like listed as the claimant. Actually, really funny thing about that specific one, we looked into like some of what is displayed on YouTube's backend for the data on that, and it's like the situation with Nintendo's music publishing on YouTube is not great. Something we tell people is, if it's worth creating, it's worth protecting, and if you don't control your property rights yourself, somebody else will. And what we're seeing with Nintendo is there's a lot of rampant false registrations and false claims on a lot of their music on YouTube, because Nintendo traditionally doesn't get involved in a lot of music publishing. It's wild. We are actually compiling a case study about it to demonstrate why it's important to pay attention to the way music rights are handled on YouTube and other platforms. But yeah, we're sort of in the middle of this Gordian knot of music nonsense on YouTube and other platforms right now.
Yeah, I know with Nintendo in particular, they never like officially released tons of their soundtracks. I mean, we're still using game rips for most of them, which is just like no quality release for the customers. They don't have the proper control over their own stuff, so you get random guy who lives in like Pakistan copywriting your content.
That's it. That's exactly what I mean. Yeah, it's stuff like that. That's like why, prevent that from happening, do it yourself. But at the same time, it is important to understand that this is basically an entirely new business for a game studio. Like, Nintendo is in the business of making and selling video games. They don't want to be part of the music business necessarily, which is unfortunate. And it's something that we are actively seeking and advocating for change regarding, because we want to advocate for a system where composers get what they're due. We want to see composers getting royalties as they're supposed to, and making the most amount of money from the video games they're producing scores for. It absolutely breaks my heart when I go on Spotify and I see, oh, here's a soundtrack for such and such a video game, and it's just listed, the artist is just like video game sound team. I think the people who poured their blood, sweat, and tears into music should be compensated appropriately.
Yeah, I know that's been a hot button issue with stuff like the credits in the Mario movie. They didn't have any of the composers other than Koji Kondo listed.
Yeah,
and I love Koji Kondo, but he's not the only person who's done. Yeah, I feel like video game composers have not gotten their fair share of credit. I definitely agree on that.
Yeah, it's a young industry. So, the video game industry is still kind of working out a lot of the ancillary sort of things like film rights and cartoon rights and, music rights and all these things. This is like the secondary rights system that exists outside of video games themselves. And this is all pretty new. If we have a system where music rights are properly managed, literally everyone benefits. The studio benefits because they get more control of their intellectual property, and they'll see other streams of royalty income that they're not seeing right now because they're not registering their music publishing stuff correctly and they're not collecting those royalties. Composers will benefit because they'll see royalty income that they're not seeing right now. All they're really getting is usually they're getting like the buyout fees. Many of the deals that game studios sign with composers are sort of flat buyout deals where, hey, game composer, you get one flat fee, and then we own everything, and then that's it. Go forth in peace. We'd like to see more composers finding steady passive income from their catalog.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I generally agree because like it's definitely like I've noticed video game composers, they normally get the flat one-time thing instead of any sort of royalties. I know that came up a lot with that situation with what's the Doom composer's name?
Mick Gordon.
Mick Gordon. Yeah, I know that was all over the place when he came out about that. So another question I got here, if you wanted to make covers of music from Undertale, like straight up covers, like I make piano covers, for instance, I've made a couple of them in the past. If the video gets, claimed and stuff, that's proper procedure that's supposed to happen?
Yes. So the best thing you can do if you want to produce a cover song is to go through a DIY distribution service like DistroKid or SoundDrop or TuneCore or any of those, because what they will do is they will get the mechanical license that is required to do that, like automatically on their backend from us. And then when they distribute your song to YouTube, it'll be on YouTube as like a licensed cover. If your cover song gets claimed, all that really means is that a portion of the money from that video is being routed to us, and then through us it gets routed to Toby. It's a little trickier if you make a cover and you just upload a video directly to YouTube, because then YouTube will detect the melody using the content ID system. And in either case, if you get a claim and you want to just check if it's legitimate or if it should be there or can it be removed, just shoot our publishing inbox an email and we'll take a look.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's generally how it's gone for me. Any of the ones that have gotten claimed, it will get the revenue sharing thing. Yeah. Which seems like it's proper procedure. It's just like, because YouTube mixes all this stuff together as just copyright claim or content claim, it can be scary. It's like, oh God, is my video going to get taken down? How much are they taking? But that actually brought me into my next question I've noticed because when I do the cover uploads, it goes straight into the revenue sharing claim. Like if I get a claim from you guys, it'll go straight into revenue sharing. Like I uploaded a piano cover of Hopes and Dreams and it went straight into revenue sharing, which I was fine with because I just wanted to put something out on YouTube. With the claims for background music, it's always straight to complete demonetization of the video. Is there anything that can be done about that? Because it's just like, it's scary if you go to sleep and the video's fine, and then you wake up and it's, the first 8 hours of the video have just no revenue, gone.
Just dispute the claim and email us. That's the best thing. We'll take a look at it. We'll try to get that turned over. That wouldn't be the way we want things to work. Like even at the most cynical, right? Like even if you're saying like, Materia is terrible and they just want to take all this money or whatever. Like even if we're going with the most cynical interpretation, which I don't think you are, but I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Even if that's how somebody thought of it, it's like if a video gets demonetized, we don't get money from it. If a video is ever demonetized and like we're listed as the claimant on that video, just email us about it.
Wait, you guys don't get the money?
No, if a video is demonetized, it's demonetized. Like
when it says it has a little red symbol with ineligible, you guys aren't getting anything from that.
No, because if a video is, and actually let me clarify, or I should say disclaimer, that like this is my own personal knowledge of this piece of YouTube. I don't know 100%, but my belief is that if a video is fully demonetized, what that means is that advertisers aren't allowing their videos, or I should say their ads, to be part of your video. So there's no revenue coming from them for anyone.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
You know, it's a funny story actually about that. Many years ago, I used to work for Sony, actually.
Oh God, I'm
And
sorry.
At the yeah, exactly. And I was a huge fan of the anime Puella Madoka, Madoka Magica, Puella Magi Madoka Magica, and
I have a lot of friends who love that one.
I love that show. And I actually made like a 25-minute video that I poured blood, sweat, and tears into analyzing the cinematography of the first episode and talking about how many of like the shot compositions were meaningful foreshadowing and like color coding and all this stuff. And it got like immediately like pulled from the platform for copyright infringement. And the funniest part was the claimant was Sony Music, whom I worked for. And so I was emailing like my literal colleagues being like, hey, can you put this back? And they were like, no.
Wow.
To this day, that video is gone.
So earlier you mentioned when we talked about background music in a gameplay video, it should always be resolved in your favor if you email you guys. And usually if you're using it as background music for like a video essay, because that should constitute as fair use if, the law actually worked properly. But fan games came up recently because there was a thing on the FAQ page for Materia that said like, hey, if you're using Undertale music in a fan game specifically, we will not resolve the claim for you, which confused a lot of people because it seems like it's fine in video essays that are unrelated to Undertale and it's fine when it's with Undertale. Why specifically fan games?
Well, okay, so I should point out a few things. So usually with fan games, they will often not use the exact OST. Oftentimes they're using like remixes or covers or, just some edited version of a song. And the tricky thing there is that if you edit a song in any way, whether it's a remix or a cover or a performance or whatever, you're creating what's called a derivative work. And a derivative work needs a license. So if you publish a video using a fan game that has derivative work music in it, then the claim is technically valid because you're using Toby's music in a new way. And then again, all the claim means is that the revenue is just going back to Toby for the music. So it's a little different from like a video essay or gameplay footage of Undertale itself, where the music being used is just the straight Undertale OST. In that case, it's like we can generally let that go. Just because, for one thing, for Undertale itself, that's fine. That should be let go. That's always let go. We don't want to screw with anybody's Let's Plays. Fan games, in particular, require a sync license. A sync license in music is when you get permission and a license to put music with film or moving pictures. So, for example, when Universal did the Mario movie, they got a sync license from Nintendo for all of their music to appear in the Mario movie. With fan games, technically speaking, because there's generally no sync license in there, that creates an issue where it muddles the YouTube rights understanding, like on YouTube's backend, and you'll start getting content ID claims based on, one incorrect thing or another, and we don't always have the power to resolve that in your favor. My recommendation, if you're making a fan game where you're doing remixes and covers or whatever, is take the OST of your fan game, go through a distributor like DistroKid or TuneCore or what have you, and release that as an album and get like an official license for it. And that will actually make it easier because then you can say, oh, the fan game that I'm playing on YouTube is using music from this album, which has been released and is properly licensed.
Okay.
Way less complicated.
So you're recommending for fan game authors to go through DistroKid for their soundtracks, like something like Undertale Yellow or TS Underswap, with these big like soundtracks filled with remix, well, not even straight remixes, derivative covers of the Undertale music. Because I know in music copyright, those are two separate things, a straight remix versus a derivative. If you're making a new composition with elements of the old composition, it's a different thing than just remixing the original composition. I know that much. I had to deal with that when I was in college one time, and laws suck.
You're absolutely correct. Yes, that's an uninformative response, but yeah, you are correct.
So I was just wondering, like, if this does happen, like, say you're playing doing a video on a fan game and something gets dinged by YouTube, is it still good to go through you guys to try to get it resolved? Would you still recommend?
That's definitely the good first point of contact, right? Like,
okay, because I just noticed the old FAQ, and I'm not sure if it's still up. said like specifically, we will not handle this at all, which was kind of like,
let me, you know what? Let me consult my notes real quick. Oh, so, okay. So it's saying that the specific language that's here is, please note that in the case of fan games which use music from the original game, including cover song versions or interpolations, our claims will remain in place. So what that's saying is, yes, if you're playing a fan game and you're using Toby's compositions in any way, like, Toby should be compensated for usage of his music. That doesn't mean that your video is going to get taken down or demonetized or anything like that. And if you see anything like that happening, like if your channel gets a strike or if your video is demonetized, reach out to us and we'll do our best to help you.
okay. Because, again, most of the claims are automatic, like ineligibility. I wouldn't even get, like, I wouldn't get a cent from the video, which is obviously a problem because that de-incentivizes people to share videos of fan games, which is
not what we want. Like, we love fan games. Like, just to be clear, like, we've even published OSTs of some fan games. Like, one of the most popular ones that we have is the Calamity mod for Terraria, the score by DM Dokuro. We helped DM Dokuro release that. Like, we have no issue with fan games whatsoever. It's really just, you know, again, us trying our best to react to the YouTube system the way it is.
I was actually going to bring up Calamity later because you might not know this, but I'm actually a developer for that mod.
You're kidding! I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
Yeah, I actually I run the social media accounts for it. So
no way, that's awesome.
I was almost sort of wondering if it would ever come up if I had to, like, you know, if we had to get into a conversation with you guys about anything. Like, I just pop up like, hey, let's add our social media manager to this group chat. Hey, Jamie.
That's so crazy. Yeah, I did not know that.
But yeah, that I know I brought this up one time when talking about it because as far as we're aware, there haven't been like any issues regarding claims on that music at all. Was there like a special thing put in place for that work, or?
You know, something that is just sort of an unfortunate reality of music rights online in general is the more popular a score is, the more likely it is to get hit by these systems. And you know, it's not that Calamity's not popular, but it's more that
it's not Undertale.
Undertale is so ludicrously popular that like it gets in the crossfires of all of the different systems. Like, just to be clear, Undertale's soundtrack is the most streamed video game soundtrack of all time.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and because of that, all of the different music publishers are like, hey, we want our piece of that pie. And you know, that's what creates a lot of these problems. And sometimes for smaller games, it doesn't happen, not because there's any difference in the rules, but because the systems are just not taking notice.
I'm actually curious though, can Content ID claim the sound effect like tracks in Undertale's soundtrack? Because there's stuff in the soundtrack like Long Elevator or Ooh, which is just a drone. Can that be copyrighted? Is that possible?
That's like a music lawyer roundtable topic. I've never seen it happen. Technically speaking, samples of any kind do have copyright, and for what it's worth, we don't get involved at all in like sound effects stuff. The answer is like technically yes, but probably no.
I think it would be pretty bad if samples ended up getting like copyright stuff on them because so much music nowadays uses sampling. Toby Fox would be in a lot of trouble. There's so much sampling from Earthbound specifically, obviously, is the big one. So I was going to ask, you mentioned you guys love fan games. Yeah, one of the questions I had written here is how do you personally feel about fan games and how does Materia as a company feel about them? Because there have been some interesting choice takes, like calling fan games a commercial venture. That was something that Sebastian said about Undertale Yellow, which has not sat particularly well with a lot of people, considering that was like a 7-year labor of love type thing.
Well, the issue with that one specifically, and I know Undertale Yellow was kind of the elephant in the room, so I'll just go ahead and talk about it a little bit. It became a commercial venture when it got put on digital streaming platforms, right? Because if there's 1 million streams on the Undertale Yellow soundtrack on Spotify is going to send them a check for money for that. So, and it's not even that we don't want that to happen. It's more just like we want to make sure that all the rights and licenses are correctly put in place. If the Undertale Yellow soundtrack had been distributed before anything went on the YouTube, and it got distributed through like DistroKid or TuneCore or one of those type of companies, and there was a proper license put in place, and it went on to Spotify and other platforms in a properly licensed way before it got released on YouTube, that actually would have been fine. There really wouldn't have been an issue with that at all. There would have still been claims where some of the money would get allocated back to Toby, but Like there would have not been like takedowns or strikes or anything like that. It's really just it's unfortunate the way Undertale Yellow's score got released, and this is not at all to throw shade at the Undertale Yellow team in any way. This stuff is really complicated. It's not accessible. There's really nothing that teaches people about this stuff unless you really go out of your way to learn about it. And that's kind of the gap that we're trying to fill, and why I'm working on a new like YouTube FAQ. It's more just like we were forced to react to a situation that already became messy, rather than, you know, preemptively getting licenses in place before the thing came out.
So with that, was the problem that they upload the soundtrack on YouTube first before going to, because I know they did go through DistroKid and released it on Spotify that way.
Yes, and the direct upload to YouTube first was the problem, because you remember how I said earlier,
I don't think there's a way they could have known about that, to be fair.
No,
of course not. Accessible at all.
Nope. I reserve zero blame for this directed at the Undertale Yellow team. I just, it's so complicated and annoying to deal with. But yeah, it's exactly as you said. The main issue was the direct upload to YouTube with no license in place, because what will happen is YouTube will often mistakenly view something like that as an original composition because it's not being uploaded with a license linked to it. So what might happen now, or like as a hypothetical, what happens in that kind of situation is people uploading Undertale music or playing it or performing it or doing Let's Plays of the game or whatever might get copyright claims where the claimant is listed as the Undertale Yellow team. Like if you're Let's Playing Undertale, it might say, oh, we detected this Undertale Yellow Megalovania remix in your video. You're using Undertale Yellow's original music, and Undertale Yellow is now listed as the claimant for a copyright claim being levied against you. And that's something we want to avoid, because if that happens, we have no power over that situation.
That makes sense. I've actually, I know the developers of, I'm not sure if you've heard of TS Underswap. It's another popular Undertale fan game. They haven't uploaded the soundtrack to YouTube yet because they were worried about the whole process, and the Undertale Yellow thing had just happened. So would your recommendation for them be to go get a license with DistroKid first, and then they're good to upload it to YouTube?
Well, yeah, and actually, as a matter of fact, usually DistroKid will do it for them. Like DistroKid can deliver to YouTube.
Oh, through YouTube Music?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing, isn't it?
It sure is. Yeah, that or they can, that or like, obviously if they want to, if anybody wants to, they can actually reach out to us directly and say, hey, we have this fan game OST, you know, we'd love to release this officially or whatever, and we can actually help get those licenses in place right from the get-go. And the fun thing is, and this is more of like my own personal investment in it, like if people who make fan games come to us and they want to release them that way, like I'd rather release it officially and like maybe do like CDs or vinyl or like support it with like a bigger release. Like I would love to do a TS Underswap like record. Like that'd be really fun. And we can do that. We could also theoretically do like an Undertale Yellow record if we worked directly with them and got their permission to do that, and so on and so forth, which would be really cool too. So I would say don't be scared to talk to us. I know that past conduct on social media hasn't been great, and you know we've really taken action to change that. I promise we're not the big bad wolf. If you email us and say, hey, yeah, no, that was
a great choice of words.
Yeah, no, that was actually not intended. And as soon as I said it, I was like, oh man.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people with like the commercial venture like comment took alarm to that, because like they weren't meaning to be it's not like the game was developed to make money. That was never the intention. It
was a poor choice of words, I think.
That's a good way to put it. Oh, I meant to ask this personally because I do a lot of mods. How does that work that's just treated as base Undertale because it's a modification of Undertale as opposed to being a fan game?
Oh, like you mean like if you're doing a YouTube video of an Undertale mod?
Yes.
I mean, as long as if it's the same music, then that's kind of exactly the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my videos are like, you know, mods that change one or two things about the game.
Yeah, that
seems to be the niche I've fallen into. I'm not sure if you're able to comment on Undertale Yellow related stuff at all. I know they've been looking to, you know, do a full release of the soundtrack. Has that situation, how has that been going?
It is progressing. I will say we are in communication with the Undertale Yellow team, and we are working on that.
Now, here's a question from me personally. If you make a Undertale-inspired track, but not necessarily, like, something that maybe uses a motif from Undertale, but other than that is either wholly original or, like, a lot of people recently, not even recently anymore, this was like 2 years ago, but somebody was making, like, spoof Deltarune tracks that were original, but also had, like, Toby Fox motifs peppered in there. How would you be able to handle that? Hey everybody, editing Shayy from the future here. Jamie sent me this clip to replace his original response in our interview because it provides more clarity of his point that he was trying to discuss. So if you notice a tiny jump in audio quality or visuals, that's why. It'll only be for this response.
So the kind of thing you're describing here is what we refer to as a derivative work, where it's not quite a straight cover, but it's also not original soundtrack music. The simplest answer is, if you're going to make a derivative work, please make sure to contact us and get it properly licensed before it gets released, even if it only contains like little pieces of, leitmotifs or melodies or whatever, because from a copyright perspective, a derivative work becomes a little bit tricky. Great example, we have standing deals with distributors, licensing platforms, sheet music platforms like Music Notes, etc. And, a few years ago, we started getting license requests and royalty statements for the music of Deltarune Chapter 3. Obviously, Deltarune Chapter 3 is not something that exists or is out yet. What was happening was fans were creating unofficial Deltarune music, but it looked official to the platforms because the platforms didn't understand the nuances of it, and that started complicating things on the licensing front, and it was a complete mess. We had to spend time clarifying that this was unofficial music. We didn't own or represent any of the rights to it. These were unlicensed, and, we had to send people back the royalties that they had sent us because we were not technically owed those royalties. It was kind of a nightmare. So I would just say, if you're going to make fan content, fan covers, fan derivative works, fan anything, make sure it's clearly marked as unofficial. And in the case of something like a derivative work, I would really say either come to us to get a license or just don't make it at all is the safest bet. I know that's not the answer anybody wants to hear, but it does technically become an impersonation or fraud issue if it's mishandled, and it can become a bit of a copyright nightmare. So yeah, I would just say, avoid it if you don't want to go out of your way to get a proper license in place before you distribute it.
Okay. Well, that is basically all the questions I had on my little thing that I sent you. Oh my gosh. We planned this in July?
We did. It's been so long. The summer's been way too busy.
I was just looking at the date of the email. I was like, wow, July 26th. I did notice Materia taking action against that one slop mobile game that was using the Undertale music for their trailers. That thinly veiled fetish game. I mean, I'll call it what it is. Those advertisements are weird.
Yeah. On this episode, the writers barely disguised fetish.
It was.
So that's something that we would take action against if somebody's using Toby's music for something that is clearly disingenuous. If you're trying to advertise a gambling thing or some other dumb, clearly illegal, unlicensed type of financial thing, then yeah, the company's gonna step in and do something about it.
That's good. I think if you guys wanted to be mean to people, those are the people to be mean to. So yeah, I know a lot of creators are I get a ton of DMs nowadays asking hey, who do I reach out to? So email you guys, best place to go to.
Yep. Yeah, email's good. And then also if you're bound to social media and you don't like doing emails or whatever, you can always DM me on Twitter or X, whatever.
Twitter.
Twitter. I'm obviously I don't tend to conduct business there. It's not a business platform, but I will at least answer you and point you in the right direction if I can. I would just say, be patient because I don't check it super often, especially on weekends. I'm not looking at it.
One other thing I wanted to ask about was there was, after Sebastian Wolf talked about Undertale Yellow, there was a former Materia employee, Laura, who came forward mentioning that she wasn't being properly credited and then the credit was added later. Was that just a mistake or? Did something
Yeah,
happen?
actually, she emailed me, or actually they. I apologize. I don't know what Laura's pronouns are. And I don't want to misgender anyone. But Laura did reach out to me, and it was literally just an error. I had it fixed.
Okay, there wasn't any
no,
because I know there have been issues there in the past, and I wanted to make sure there wasn't any
no credit.
You
credit
spoke of me badly, so I'm going to remove the credits.
No credit. Credit for people's work is a non-negotiable core pillar of our company values. We credit everybody for everything, no exceptions, no negotiations about it. If there was some reason why somebody said, "Hey, can you credit me under a pseudonym or remove my name from the credits on something?" we could do it. But to my knowledge, or at least while I've been at the company, that's never happened.
Makes sense. So final question is, what is your position in the company? How high up are you nowadays?
So I'm the vice president of business development. So I'm basically number 2.
Okay. That was my impression, but your Twitter bio just says publishing label, which could mean any amount of things.
Yeah.
But that makes sense. I was just wondering, when I saw your comment on my video, I was thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, what is his job security like?
High.
Okay, very high. Good. Because I feel like in most jobs, if you talked about if you were that honest, it would get you into trouble, right?
When I came to the company, it's actually funny. I kicked down Sebastian's door for a year, and I was like, "Look, you need to hire me. I will fix shit. You need to hire me." And after the 4th time, he was like, "Okay, let's schedule a call." And after a couple of calls, literally him and I were kind of dancing this dance of him talking to me about hey, how would you improve Materia? What do you see that we could fix or improve or whatever? And eventually I was like, look, let's cut the bullshit. You want to hire me and I want to work for you. Let's make an offer. I'm a New York guy. I'm kind of from that New York school of business where I'm like, look, let's not waste each other's time and get directly to the point.
That was, I assume you started working there right after that whole thing with the Celeste artists?
A little later.
Around that time period?
I came in May of 2022.
Okay. Because I just remember that was all over the place with the whole, they weren't being paid properly and
the sad truth of that is the company response to that was not good, and it was not necessary for it to be that way. I think it would have been a lot easier to just say look, we screwed up. We're a growing company. We apologize for this being handled incorrectly. The truth of the matter was at that time we had an issue where our systems were not properly functioning. We have our own sort of internal in-house built system that handles our accounting and disperses royalties. And it's wonderful. It's literally better than things I've seen at major record labels. But, it's also proprietary and young and in-house. And in that moment, it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. Since that incident happened in late 2020, and I haven't seen anything like that ever happen again. So I do think that the systematic changes that we've made are working, but a poorly handled public response like that takes a very long time to recover from, and I'm respectful of that.
Bad PR, bad PR posts still get brought up today from companies posts 5 years ago that still get brought up.
The most horrifying words are "this you" with the screen cap attached. Yeah.
This you with the screen cap. Yep, that's a classic. I know Pizza Tower signed on with you guys recently, so have any issues arisen from that? Because I know that game is popular, but not it's not Undertale popular.
So far, really nothing. It's been really good, and I will offer a sneak peek that we do have some really cool Pizza Tower projects in the works. More details TBD. Can't say anything yet.
Makes sense.
But we want to make sure that we're supporting that game really hard and also having a lot of fun with it, because the game's just really goddamn cool.
It is a very, very good game. Yeah, I think that is all of my questions. I didn't have any more written, I don't think.
I mean, hey, if you've got anything to spitball at me, I'm here.
What's your contact with Toby Fox like? Do you guys speak directly frequently, or?
You want to hear something absolutely insane?
Let me guess, the answer is no, you guys barely talk.
So we had a conversation on a Zoom call or a Google Meet call, whatever, earlier this year. And that was the first time anybody from the company, including Sebastian, had spoken verbally with Toby.
Really?
Everything prior was written communication. So far, I have had phone convos with him twice. But generally it's over email. I mean, Toby is the kind of person who likes to just take things at his own pace and is very much busy doing a million things at the same time. Ultimately, at the end of the day, like what our company does is handles all the administrative nonsense so that artists can spend time focusing on their art.
With music, yeah. Wait, no, you already answered that question. I was gonna ask the question about the compositional thing again, but you already answered that. Those very outdated laws.
Here's an interesting one that I didn't bring up before: medleys. So technically, when a song gets licensed, you license the composition that's in the song. So if you create a medley, you actually have to license each composition that's in the medley. So if you have 5 songs in an Undertale medley, you need to license all 5 songs.
For my audience at home, melody and medley are different things. A medley is a composition or a compilation of a bunch of tracks, usually linked into each other seamlessly.
Yeah.
Because I know there's been confusion plenty of times over melody and medley. You know, the Undertale fan base is a little young with musical terms. They got their hands on the term leitmotif, and we're like, I know what this is. Jury's out on that. I'm not quite sure you guys know what that is all the time.
It's such a cool way to like establish a character or an idea.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Toby loves using it. Did you have anything else you wanted to add or tell the people?
I guess as like a closing remark, just if you have any questions whatsoever about music rights or music on YouTube, how it applies to video game music or fan games or claims or any of that stuff, please don't hesitate to reach out. You know, we have our different social media platforms. We're on Meta, we're on Blue Sky, we're on, here, there, and everywhere. You can also reach out to our publishing inbox at info@materiamusicpub.com. And I am also on Twitter at Jamie Materia. I should probably set up a work Blue Sky. I haven't done it yet. Feel free to just hit me up and ask me questions. I'm always happy to help.
Makes sense. So, well, I thank you for joining me, and thanks for coming on and being part of the interview, even though my fan base doesn't have the highest perception of Materia as a company at the moment.
Likewise, thanks for having me, and hopefully with like patience and transparency, that can change one step at a time.
Oh, I remember what I wanted to say now is about the legalese thing, because I know a lot of people read through that statement that was issued to me and they didn't know. Even my video editor made fun of all the usage of the big words. I knew what that meant, but I don't think many people out there know what ephemeral reproductive display exploitation means.
Yeah.
That just feels like using big words to be like, I know more about this, but it doesn't actually explain what that is to people.
Well, part of the issue is that if something's on a public social media platform, that can be construed as a legally binding communication. So the company's hand is forced in where it's we have to speak in the same level of ass coverage as if we were writing a formal letter to somebody, because it's if we say something on a public platform, somebody can point to that and be like, well, this company said this, and then it becomes a problem if it's something we didn't intend for it to be interpreted as. The response is going to be exactly the same as if they were on the stand in a courtroom, because it just has to be.
Unless it's YouTube, where it feels like it's an automatic response being written by a 14-year-old for some reason. I don't know why
that's a can of worms that is another hour-long interview. AI is definitely a problem already and will continue to become a problem as time goes by.
Actually, that brings up a good question. How have you guys been dealing with those? Because I know there's been this trend lately it's one thing to have the AI song covers, because I feel like there's something intrinsically kind of neat about hearing Freddie Mercury sing a Beatles song. But there's the AI extensions of things lately. How have you been handling those? Because I know some Undertale ones have popped up. Have you just been nuking those?
Yeah, we're not a fan. We don't like AI. Our company's stance is that AI itself is built on copyright infringement. And, if your system is built on crime, it shouldn't exist. AI is just something that gets used duplicitously to steal jobs from artists. It's not acceptable. Companies being oh, we're laying off people because ChatGPT can do it instead. That's just so foolish and short-sighted.
I agree.
We don't like that at all. And I actually saw a great anecdote online where a college professor in the beginning of their semester took their class and said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's an essay prompt. Get ChatGPT to write the essay for you, and then fact-checked the essay. Every single student was anti-AI after that. As the evergreen quote from IBM says, a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision. The only thing an AI can do is regurgitate whatever is being fed into it. There's no creative spark, there's no intentionality, there's no there's no artistic value. It's just the facsimile of art. It's
I feel like unless the thing you're doing is specifically poking fun at AI doing that, like I've done a couple of videos poking fun at, AI generated text mods for the game, but that's like the point is insulting what it's coming up with because it's just nonsense.
Yeah.
But when you use it to try to replace, like, try to extend music, that just feels...
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think the worst part about AI is there are some applications of AI that are incredible. Like there was recently some coverage around an AI model that's being trained to detect cancers much earlier. Like that's incredible. If we're using AI to save lives and revolutionize medicine, if we get the technology that is being pioneered right now, where nanomachines and AI are working together to specifically target cancer cells in somebody's body and break those down without attacking healthy cells and will one day replace chemotherapy, that's amazing. That's how you market AI. I don't know why these companies insist on using AI and selling it with like the promise that it's going to devalue artists. I don't want AI to do art so I can do my laundry. I want AI to do my laundry so I can
you
do
can
art.
do your art. Yeah.
That's the whole, I
feel like they've gone backwards with it, right? Like they've started at the most human things instead of doing the most they've gone backwards with it. I don't want AI, AI music, AI art, even AI voices.
The potential for AI to be used to either take people's jobs away or spread active misinformation, because there's so many tools now that are allowing AI to create convincing fake video or fake audio. It's when somebody uses an AI to convincingly recreate your voice and call your grandma to ask for money. It's when somebody, creates a fake video of a politician saying something they never said, puts that out online, and suddenly an entire generation believes that somebody said something. Like that's the part where this technology is very toxic.
Yeah, it's good to have a good stance on that, because I was kind of interested how the company viewed AI in general. I had a feeling this was going to be the answer, given you guys are... Materia generally is pretty progressive on social policies, I've noticed. So,
yeah.
What did you say your blue sky was?
I don't have a work blue sky yet, but Materia...
I just found the Materia Collective one, but
okay.
I was curious if you had a personal one or anything like that.
Not yet.
Okay. But yeah, I don't think I have anything else to ask. If you had anything else you wanted to add, is it better to reach out to the company email or to you personally?
You know what? I'd probably say to the company email, because I usually get looped in anyway on a lot of the issues. So like one way or another, I'll check it out.
Because I've talked with the company email, and it's, I can tell, I've vaguely gotten like an understanding of who I'm talking to based on like typing quirks, and then, sometimes you'll say your name in there, or I'll get the mysterious email from S. I'm like, ooh, I wonder who that could be.
Yeah. The mysterious S signature.
It's like, ooh.
By the way, just the fact that we've all known this for years, but the fact that it's like Toby Fox and Sebastian Wolf is the funniest shit. It is the funniest shit.
I noticed you guys... Okay, question. You asked for... I remember you were asking for the person who drew the original art to get like merchandise of it. Are you guys actually going to do that?
Well, I'd have to get the permission to do that. But I would love to at least get like a hat made or something. It's just a really good iteration of the design, like the yin and yang of like the white cute dog and then the angry black wolf is, or I'm sorry,
it's just funny to, as an onlooker to all of that, it's like, what is going on? Like, what's the relationship there? Do you guys like? Because it almost kind of comes across like, yeah, I hate my boss.
No, not that at all. And actually, you know what? I will say this, and this isn't me just being nice. Like, to me, at least, and to the team, as far as I've seen it, Sebastian has actually been a really great boss. He is really assertive about advocating for like mental health. Like he's like, if you're sick, take the day off. If you need a mental health day, take the day off. Like, take care of yourself. He has never told any employee that they have to like put the company over themselves or anything like that. Like, he's very much like, I will retain employees and make sure they're okay, which has been far more admirable than many other workplace leadership positions I've seen. But my personal stance on the whole like Toby Sebastian Wolf character thing, I think it's important for a company to be able to have some laughs at itself. Like, I think it's exhausting to take myself seriously all the time. I think the Sebastian mascot thing is really funny, and so does everyone else at the company. We just think it's kind of cool. If anything, if somebody drew me as a mascot, I'd be more flattered than anything else.
Okay, well, I think that's just about it then. I don't think I have anything else to ask. Unless you had some final thing you wanted to add, like some...
I think I said my outro bit like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, but I'll give this to my editor and be like, hey, cut out all the fluff and put my webcam in a fancy border and make it, do flips and stuff.
Do like an OBS overlay where we're like inside the YouTube play button as like reflections on the surface.
You get like a podcast layout. Yeah, I have no more questions to ask.
Yeah, cool. I think I'm also out of ideas.
I'm sure I've eaten up enough of your time.
Fine.
Yeah, for everybody at home, we had this listed as a 1 hour thing, and it is currently 1 hour and 40 minutes into our recording. So
yes,
that went great. I'll have to tell my editor to cut out my start menu button so you can't see my Discord pings go up and down as I clear them out. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Jamie, for joining me here. And hopefully it answers some of your questions. If you have further questions for them, you can always email them or email Jamie or, leave your questions in the comments. And I'm sure he might even look through the comments and be like, I'm going to go answer them like a Reddit AMA.
I will absolutely wind up looking through the comments. And yeah, thank you for having me. Happy to
I bet you the YouTube comments will treat you nicer than the Reddit AMA did.
That's a low bar, but I hope so.
I like to think my community is a little bit better than Reddit.
Yeah.